Okay, good morning. Here I am. Let me know if you can hear everything, if everything works, if you can see me. Let me see, so that we will start today's class. Also, I will keep an eye on the chat in here. Okay, good morning. Let me see. Disable here. Okay, morning. Very nice. Okay, so let's start and uh, let's see what we have to do today because we need to finish a couple of things into edit poly. Good morning. We need to finish a couple of things on the edit poly modifier, and then I need to show you another tool. So first of all, let me write down here things that we have to study into edit poly. There are, we need to, in edge editing mode, we need to uh, add two more tools. One that is really important is called chamfer, and another tool that I want to show you that sometimes can be helpful is a tool that is called create shape, and they are both tools that you can find, as I said, into edge editing mode into the edit poly modifier. Good morning. Then I will finish edit poly modifier by showing you another tool that you can find in general. There is a tool that is called cut. After this, I will explain instead another modifier that is called TURBOSMOOTH. That is a modifier that it is in general applied, hello, that is in general applied in combination with edit poly, but technically this is a generic modifier that can be applied to whatever other object. But this is today menu. We will start with these tools, and then we will finish with these. Then I will give you your homework. I will explain a few more things like good morning everyone. First of all, so while we wait maybe a few more classmates. First of all, first technical thing is that if you browse this YouTube channel, you will find also all previous videos that I have already live streamed in previous weeks. So I have also taken this decision, that is, I will keep all my videos in my channel till the end of the semester, basically, so that you can watch them as many times that you want. If you need, you can watch them even at slower speed. I mean, but all my videos are in this channel. Okay? And you're welcome. And this is first. Second thing that I want to tell you is that, so I explained it at the beginning of the class. There will be this. Next week, there will be your phenomenal. Uh, Thank you so much. You're welcome. But I was saying this. Next week, there will be your midterm exam. So I would like to explain how the midterm exam works so that next week you can do it immediately. But the midterm will work like this. And just in case, I have also this software here, and I will write instructions for the midterm that are like this. So, first thing first, the midterm is next week, so it will be Wednesday, starting at 11 or less, minutes more, minutes less, and um, you will have not like the AutoCAD midterm that we have made last semester that you have technically 2 hours. I will give you 24 hours to make your midterm. So I will basically create a very specific folder that is called that will be called midterm folder. That meter folder will remain available for 24 hours. So you can start, so you should not can, you should start Wednesday at 11 and on Thursday at 11 I will simply close that folder so that if you are not in Italy, if you cannot follow in real time this video, I mean, I will give you just more time. What is interesting is that even if you are technically making the midterm during the time of the live stream, Wednesday from 11 to 1, that is the regular schedule for our live stream, I will be behind the camera. And I mean, if you have questions, I will leave also the chat and so on and so on. And if you have questions, live Wednesday from 11 to 1, you will be able to make me question on specific doubts that you may have about your midterm, so I can also help you in real time. So the support, let's say, is Wednesday from 11 to 1. But if you are not able to finish your midterm exam inside these 2 hours, just remember that you have 24 hours to upload your finished file. Okay? And last thing is, the midterm will be basically something very similar to homework that you had for today. So I will give you a folder full of furniture elements, and you can choose one of them and try by yourself in making the 3D model of that specific object that you have selected. Okay? Is that clear? If you have questions about the midterm, do them now so that next week you can quickly start and finish it instead. Okay? So, let me see if you have questions. All clear. Wow. Perfect. Awesome. All clear. Lovely. So if everything is clear, we can start immediately by discovering today's tools that are, as I said, perfect. Today we need, so I can close whiteboard and let's see what. Oops, someone said some one question with the homework for today. Did we need to color it? The answer is no. Or if this is not clear, let me check. Let me do this. No, no colors. Uh, yes, I understand. But the thing will work like this. Basically, I divide 3ds Max semester in two main parts. There are 3D modeling, and this is first part. And then I explain everything that is about rendering. So I explain materials and then lights and then rendering. So basically the midterm is the element that that basically is the stop, is last part of modeling. After the midterm, I will start explaining you materials, then lights, then render. Okay? So this is how semester is divided. So we will make materials after. Okay? Perfect. So let me see here. Let's always set the viewport by using edged faces. And let me create a box so that I explain first of today's tool. That is that one that is called chamfer into edge editing mode. So say this. I make a box. Oops. I go to the Modify tab. I apply Edit Poly, and I select Edge Editing Mode. And now it's the time to use chamfer, and I will show you what it does. I select at least one edge. I scroll down this menu, and I find chamfer. As you may see, chamfer has settings button next to it. So remember, each time that I say I use chamfer or other tools, I click settings next to the tool. I don't press the button itself, but I click next to it. Okay? So let me see. There's another message. And Marco, I got your notes from this. I can. Yes. No problem. Okay. So I was saying this. I select one edge. I click settings next to chamfer, and I have my usual floating message. So this is what chamfer starts doing. Basically, starting from my single selected edge, with chamfer I can split it and I can add this angled detail to my object. Inside chamfer parameters, we need to focus our attention in two of them only. There are this one is amount, and this is first parameter that we will see. And if we left click and drag in here and we increase or decrease amount, what chamfer does will be this. Look, basically we can make a very small or a very big cut in our edge, and distance is basically the distance that you create from your two new edges that you have, that you are about to create. Okay? And if I click OK, this is first result that I have in using chamfer. But chamfer is not only for doing this particular detail, because we need to see that inside chamfer parameters there's another interesting value that we may want to change, and it will have a very different result. So look, I will select another edge. Again, I click settings next to chamfer, and this time, instead of focusing on the amount, I want to show you this second parameter, the one that is called segments. Because by default, whenever you make chamfer adjustments, you will see that segment is always set to 1. One segment basically means that in between my split edges there is one segment only. But what is interesting is that I can increase this value, and if I increase this value, I will discover that, let's say, not more than 6, I mean maybe 8, but not more than these. But basically, by adding more segments to the chamfer, instead of having a flat cut, I subdivide my flat cut with these smaller segments, and I obtain a rounded edge. So, see the result. By using same exact tool, so I'm using chamfer in both edges of this box, but just by changing the parameter that is called segment, I can see that chamfer is able to create two completely different results. So, or flat cuts in my edges, or I can round edges with this tool. Okay? Last but not least is that chamfer can be used not by selecting one edge at a time. I can also select more edges, and I can I can chamfer them together. So, for example, look, I can select all these edges. I can click chamfer and just make it better. And I can choose to apply same adjustment to more than one selected edge at the same time. Click OK. And this is the result of using chamfer in all these selected edges. Okay? So this is what chamfer does. It cuts or round edges. And this is first simple tool that I want to show you today in order to have a better understanding of what Edit Poly does. Uh, if this is clear, I want to show you then second tool for today, just by remaining into edge editing mode. Sorry. There is the tool that is called Create Shape. So, Create Shape is a tool that is just a little bit below. It is this one. But again, you can see that it has settings next to it. So when I say that I click Create Shape, remember, please, that I don't click the button itself, but I click always Settings. So let's see what Create Shape does. That is very interesting. Look, I select one or let's say a few edges. Once that I have selected edges, what I do is I click Settings next to Create Shape. And I will show you. I will show you what happens. Look, if I click Create Shape, I click Settings, I have just more options to work with. But this is in general. And not only when I use Create Shape, but I will show you later also what happens if you use, for example, chamfer without pressing settings. That would be pretty interesting in my opinion. But let's see this. First of all, right way to use these tools is by using settings so that we can use additional options. I click Create Shape. I set that I need, and this must be always set like this. I need to set linear type, and I can also give my shape a name. Let's say Marco, and I click OK. So when I use this tool at the very beginning, it looks like we haven't done anything. It looks like that our file has remained the same. While if you pay attention, you will notice that in our Scene Explorer, there is a new object that is called Marco. And as you can see from the symbol, the object is an editable spline. So, to reveal that object, see this. I just close Edge editing mode, and from my Scene Explorer, I will simply click the eye symbol next to box so that I will hide it for a second and look what I have created. This is what I have created by using Create Shape. So, from my edge selection, I have created an editable spline that I can use with all editable spline tools that I know. So basically, this tool is particularly useful when you need to quickly and precisely replicate edges from your objects. What it means? Let me show you few examples. Look, let's say you have a box, okay? And you apply edit poly because I want to quickly create another object that will be like this. Look, I want to create an object that will perfectly follow the shape of my box, but then I will extrude it like this. So instead of making a line, snap, and so on and so on, look, after using Edit Poly, I go to Edge, I select this, control this edge, and I click Create Shape. But I click Settings so that I can set right option that is linear. I can also change the name and I click OK. And now I have my shape 1. So if I select shape 1, this is an editable spline. So I can use all those tools that we have already seen, like I can select it as a spline. I can use outline to make the offset, and then, just because it is an editable spline, I can extrude it. And without using snaps, without using anything complex, but I was able to create this secondary element that perfectly follows the shape of my box. Okay? And this is one way to use create shape. Let me show you another example. And this example would be, you really must be ready because this would be just too cool to be true. But look, I make a box that more or less looks like a cube. And then check this. I apply Edit Poly because if not, I can use any of these tools. What I will do now is instead, I will prepare my box a little bit. So I will add a very, very simple detail, that is, I want to chamfer this top and this bottom edge, as well as I want to chamfer this vertical and this vertical edge. So basically on left face, I select both vertical edges. Into the right face, I select both top and bottom edge. But I want to use chamfer. And just to explain why you shouldn't use the button of the tool but always settings, let's see how chamfer would work if you make it wrong. Look, but if I click chamfer and I click the button, chamfer basically has no control rather than using left click and drag. And because I have no options, if I use only the button that is chamfer, you can also see that I'm not even able to make round corners. So I have a lot of limits, and this is why I will instead go back, and I will never use the button itself, but I always click settings. So I click settings next to chamfer so that I can precisely control the amount, precisely control the fact that I want to add 4 segments, while if I'm not using settings, I can't have this option, and then I click OK. So look at my box. It has top, bottom rounded edges, these 2 vertical edges. Ready for this? Because this, will leave you, speechless. Check this. I select edges and I start with a little bit of patience in selecting all these edges. So basically I just select everything that I have created by using chamfer except for these subdivisions. So I just select outer profile of my box, and I keep selecting things simply because I am also holding Control key on the keyboard. Then I press Alt middle click to rotate, then again Control click, and I have selected this entire loop of continuous edges. Okay? Ready for this? So check what I will do. Now I click Create Shape. I click Settings because if not, I can change the name. I can change it to linear. So I will call this Chair and I keep it linear and I click OK. Ready for this? Because this would be insane. I simply hide my box to show you exactly how my editable spline looks like. This is what I have created by making a copy of those edges. It is an editable spline. It is a it is a shape that reminds you the frame of the chair of the Homework 4. So because it is a spline, it can be enabling rendered, enabling viewport, and boom. This is a completely different way to create the frame of the chair of Homework 4. Okay? Yes? No? Maybe? Let me see the chat. Let's see. I know, that is too cool. And let me show you an example. Let me show you, then I will show you that headphone that wasn't there by mistake. But for example, aims chair. This technique can be used whenever we need, no shopping, sorry, images. Whenever we need to make this kind of complex three-dimensional wire structures, and there is one in particular, exactly this one. In, to make things like these, I will show you, Frederick, in a second. But to make these objects, this is the technique that we have to follow. So look, this kind of three-dimensional wire structures, instead of being drawn directly with um, uh, editable splines, they come from create shape. So just to repeat, look, in general, when you have whatever editable spline that looks just like a thin line, you must select it. You have to go to the Modify tab, and whatever is a drawing, so whatever is a shape, has into the Modify tab a menu that is called Rendering. Rendering is a menu that is always closed, so you have to open it first. Inside Rendering, you need to select these two options together called Enable in Renderer, Enable in Viewport, to give your shapes a visible thickness that then can be adjusted from the parameter that becomes available that is called thickness. Okay? Okay, yes? Hopefully it is yes. I think it is yes. So, you're welcome. So, let's say this. There is an interesting feature of Edit Poly Modifier that you may use even if you are not selecting any specific sub element. So it is a feature that works just by applying Edit Poly, and this feature is called Cut. So where it is, look. When you let's make something different. Let's say we make I don't know, a a cylinder. Okay, and then I apply Edit Poly. That is here. So see this. I'm not selecting any specific feature here. So no vertex, no edge, no border, nothing. But if I have just applied Edit Poly modifier, I can simply make this step, that is, I can right click on my cylinder, and when I right click up on the left, I will find this option that is called Cut. And what Cut does is basically it allows me to add new edges all over my solid, but without limitations that are using the grid of my object. So if I left click Cut, then I can simply start by left clicking wherever I need in my object, So I will start, let's say, from this edge, and I'm not holding left button. I just left click and release. But for example, I can move my mouse still here and then left click and then left click and then left click and then here and then again here. And then to stop cutting, I have to press twice right button, 1 and 2. By doing this, look, in my geometry, I have cut these free-form edges, and I can use now my new subdivision to do whatever operation that I want. For example, now I can select all these polygons and I can extrude them together. And I can click OK. For example, I can use inset like we've seen last week. And instead of using inset by group, I will use inset by polygon. And then I can make this. And then I can use again extrude. I'm just messing my object. Okay. And I have added this particular element, this particular detail, and not by being limited into the grid that is the square subdivision of my object, but with cut I can add whatever new edge all along my selected solid. And I need to show you one more thing about cut that is extremely important so that you can use cut in a more precise way. So we need to know that, first of all, when I apply Edit Poly, I right-click and I use Cut. When I move my mouse over my selected object that has Edit Poly applied, I can see that according to where my mouse goes, the cursor of my mouse changes its shape. And this is not randomly happening, but when you use cut, the cursor of your mouse may have three possible shapes, and they have a specific meaning. There is this. Look, when your mouse has this kind of cursor, and there is a small cross basically with the center that is not visible, that means that if you click cut, you will precisely cut from a vertex. But if you see that your mouse, that your cursor acquires this shape, that means that you are cutting your 3D object, and your cut starts precisely from an edge, while if your cursor has this shape, it means that you are just cutting from somewhere inside a polygon, but you're not snapping anything. And also, in addition to these three helpers, you need to know that cut also follows snapping features that we may enable by clicking here. So that if we want, look, I can cut from this edge to this edge. And I am sure that I've cut from edge to edge because first click and second click, I have seen that my mouse had that slightly longer shape. But if I want to be more precise and I right click, and if I want instead to make cutting operations from midpoint to midpoint till midpoint and so on, I can also left click to turn on the snap, and I can right click to set snapping to the midpoint. So now, like any other operation, even if I right click and I use cut, now I will be able to cut from midpoint till midpoint till midpoint till midpoint. And then I can go to this midpoint, maybe till this one, and I can snap all these midpoints when I don't need anymore the snap, but I don't want to finish the cut. I just move my mouse up here and I stop the snap, and I can snap vertex, 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 nothing, vertex. And I can combine operations that would be very precise that I have made by using snaps with operations that are everything except that precise. So I can make these, for example. I can click, right click, cut, and I can start cutting shapes in my cylinder, and they will be very precise, like that. And I was snapping it, as well as snapping with the actual snap tool. And then this is not more a midpoint, as well as cutting whatever I want, wherever I want. This is what cut does. And by using cut, I have all these new polygons, and I can now use all my previous tools that I have already learned in the edit poly in order to make transformations. So right click. For example, I will make this magic thing, that is, I will select all these edges. I click create shape, linear, okay, and this is the result of using create shape. I just make it less thick, and I have created this kind of cage by using all these tools together. Okay, Yes? No? Maybe? Then I want to show you just another tool with cut that is, while you see this, just because last week, last week, I showed you that by using Connect, we were able to make a bookshelf. So let me just show you these. I make a copy. And again, I make a copy simply because I want two similar starting objects, but then I need to modify them in two completely different ways. So, just to repeat what I've done last week, look, I apply edit poly to this. I select these two vertical edges, and I will use connect to start creating a grid-like subdivision. So with connect, I add this extremely precise linear grid-looking new edges. And then I go to polygon and I select these polygons. I click inset and I inset by polygon and very small. And then I can extrude these polygons and I will extrude them with a negative value so that they will go inside. And I have made a very simple, slightly boring bookshelf. But if you are designers and you want to do something a little bit more interesting, you can basically follow similar steps where instead of connect to create those perfect linear edges, I use cut. So I apply edit poly, then I right click and I use cut to start cutting these front face of this box. And then right click to stop. Then from here I will do exactly same steps that I've done before. So I click polygon with control and click. I select all these front polygons. I use exactly same things that I did before. I use inset by polygon, and then extrude. And I use extrude with a negative value so that these polygons will be pushed inside the box. And I have now to choose if in my house I want a boring but functional bookshelf, or if I want this fancy looking bookshelf, okay, that I've made with cut instead of connect. Okay? Is it clear? Let me check the chat. Let me see. Let me see. Perfect. Okay. Very nice. So, if this is clear, uh, let me explain another tool that is a modifier that um, it is not that complex actually in how it works, but what is complex is understanding how we need to create our objects and then applying this modifier. So let me show you first. The modifier that I want to show you is called TurboSmooth. And I will show you first what it does, then I will specify a few more interesting aspects of this modifier. But TurboSmooth is a modifier that can be applied to whatever three-dimensional object. I will start by using an edit poly just to make the explanation and the understanding of this modifier a little bit clearer. But look, I make a box, I apply edit poly, and then I start by extruding few polygons. So I extrude these polygons, then control, I extrude these polygons, and then this and this. So I'm just, let's say, doodling, nothing really important, but I'm just making something to apply edit poly. And later on, I will copy this, but not now. But see this. TurboSmooth, so let me write it also so that it remains here. So the modifier that we are going to use is a modifier that is called TurboSmooth. Let's see what it does. First of all, it is a modifier. You can apply it to whatever is a 3D object. And when you apply this modifier to your object, at the very beginning, you will see that your object will look completely different because it will look like this. Boom! So, starting from our beautiful, sharp, precise shape, now we have created this object, that looks like the bone that you throw to a dog, or like the pirate flag that has bones. But if you notice, what TurboSmooth is doing is simply it is blending organically all our flat faces together. And at the very beginning, the effect is not looking super great because it is a little bit rounded, but we can still see that there are sharp edges. So inside TurboSmooth, there is only one sorry, parameter that you have to change. There is the parameter that is called iterations. This iteration set to 1 starts by smoothing our object, but this value can be increased in order to obtain more smoothed results. And this number should never, never, ever go above the value that is 3. I won't show you what happens if you go over 3. You shouldn't do it while you are live, simply because the result is just that after a certain number, your computer will simply crash. Okay? But look, if I increase iterations, this is 1, I set 2, my object becomes more smoothed, almost perfect, but we could do better. So I set iterations to 3, boom, and my object has become perfectly smoothed, super round. Okay? Let me see the chat. Till here? Maybe yes. Okay. Perfect. So let's see something that we need to understand, because look, how can we? Yes, but before using this on a chair, we need to understand how can we control the turbo smooth effect, because maybe we can create something, then we apply turbo smooth, and sometimes results that we obtain are far from being optimal. So let's see, there are basically 2 extremely important aspects that we need to know when we use turbo smooth. So first aspect is this. Look, I just make a copy of this object. Copy, again, not instance. And for a second, I will remove just the turbo smooth modifier by selecting the modifier and by clicking this symbol that looks like a recycle bin. So the thing is, how can we predict that this sharp shape becomes this? And technically, we can predict it, because first rule that we need to learn in using Turbo Smooth is simply that big polygons connected together in Turbo Smooth are converted into big curvy connections. So the fact that we have, look, I would just draw it here. The fact that we have this big polygon immediately connected with this big, and that is connected with this big polygon, with these. All these big polygons connected together are turned into a smooth and very smoothed result. That is exactly what we see here. So first rule that we need to learn is that the smaller polygons are, the smaller the curve will be. So for example, look, if we select this edit poly and before using Turbo Smooth, look, we select, let's say, these three edges, and we simply apply a little bit of chamfer. So I just add this very small detail. Okay? If you are not, super precise, it looks like we haven't done anything special. While in reality, we have simply broken the continuity between this big polygon and this big polygon here by adding these smaller details. Okay? So check this. By simply adding this chamfer edge in here, see how different it will be the result in this area of our edit poly when we apply Turbo Smooth. Look, ready, steady, go. I apply Turbo Smooth. We can see already that in here it is slightly different. But in order to use the same modifier, I also always set iterations to 3. And look how different will be the result. So where we have placed those details, you can see that we are also breaking the curve. And instead of being like a one continuous curve, now we have this almost flat area, and then this small curve in here, and then flat again. And this is first thing that we need to know when we use Turbo Smooth. So let me show you this other example that would be fantastic. I make a box, and I make a box that is basically like, what is the box? Hey, box, it's gone here. It is very large, but the height of this box is almost 0. And what I will do will be this. Look, before using edit poly, I will change segments to be 2 segments for the length, 2 segments for the width. Okay? And I really, you know what? I really make the height that is close to 0. Very nice. Now I'm ready to use edit poly and see which kind of transformation I will do. I apply edit poly. I select this center polygon, and at the same time I select lower center polygon, and I use scale to make them bigger, more or less like this. Fantastic. Okay? Ready for this? Look, I then select top polygon and I move it up. I select lower polygon and I move it down, but not in a symmetrical way. So basically I move top polygon higher, lower polygon less distant, like this. Okay? So see what we have. We have big polygons on top, big polygons underneath. We have very small polygons on this edge. If we apply TurboSmooth, see what we create. Apply TurboSmooth, change iteration to 3, and you have a pillow that you can use if after this class you want to go back to sleep. Okay? But if you notice, we can make our pillow a lot better because this pillow has only one small defect. That is, it is true that pillows are beautifully rounded like this. But, and I will make a sketch, it is also true that pillows in general are not that round in here. They are, in reality, they are a bit more pointy. Okay? So we need to combine these two elements. We need to have something that is smooth on top, but in and on the bottom. But in here, it has to be a little bit more edgy, more pointy. So check what I will do. Sorry. This just to answer. So let me show you this. Let me delete the sketch. So what I will do is I will select the pillow. I will remove for a second TurboSmooth. And what I will do is simply I select, look, it looks weird, but I select these tiny vertical edges all around the pillow. So these very little vertical edges, not this one, this, and last one is here. Let me check. Exactly. Not this one, but this one. And I will add a little, very little bit of chamfer. Just like this. So something that is barely visible. A tiny, 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 tiny chamfer. I click OK. I close my edit poly. I apply again TurboSmooth. and I set again iterations to 3. But now look, my pillow will have now this beautiful, slightly pointy corners that will make the pillow looking a lot more realistic. Okay? You can add a lot more elements, like you can, let's say, rotate this polygon in order to set, let's say, where the head used to rest. You can mess a few of these vertices to give a more organic look, like these, move that. You can just move these a little bit on top, and so on and so on. So you can add a little of small imperfections, and then when you will apply again turbo smooth iterations 3, not 4, way 3, and now you have these beautiful fluffy pillow made in a second. Okay? Till here? Yes? No? Maybe? Check. Let me check the chat. Perfect. Awesome. And this is basically one of the most important thing that we need to know about TurboSmooth. But there is another thing that you have to know. There is a little bit more technical, but it is extremely important to be known. There is this. Sometimes you apply edit poly, maybe apply other modifier, but especially you apply turbo smooth on an edit poly or other kind of objects, and you apply you set iterations to 3, and your object will be destroyed. And I want to show you this particular example that is fantastic. Look, if I make this line I don't know exactly how many sides it has. I mean, can be more, can be less, it's the same. But then look what I do. We know that into an editable spline, we can use outline. So I select the spline. I use outline. Inside, outside, it is the same. But now I can use extrude. And let me tell you, till here, I haven't done anything special, anything magical. I have just made an editable spline, outline, and then extrude. But see this disaster that is about to happen. Look, because, I mean, also if you suffer from for heart attacks or heart disease, this problem will be a little bit too strong. So let's check this. I select this object and I immediately apply Turbo Smooth. And the result that I will have will be terrible. Look, ready, steady, go, boom. I also go iterations to 3, and my donut looking thing is gone. And inside there is this kind of, you see that small crooked hole. This is a disaster. And also it is pretty far from what I was expecting from TurboSmooth, because I thought that by making that sharp looking ring, by applying TurboSmooth, I may have like a donut, but a smooth donut example. And why this is happening? Look, and this is one, unfortunately, small technical thing that you need to know about TurboSmooth in 3ds Max. TurboSmooth works well, and it gives you results that you may expect if the polygon that you are dealing with have maximum 8 sides. So look, in my pillow, the pillow looks fantastic, because if I check my polygons, look, they have 1, 2, 3. Look, here there is a tiny one, so 4, 5 edges. But if I check another one, like this polygon here has 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. Until my polygon has 8 edges, TurboSmooth will work fine. But if my polygon starts by having more than 8 polygons, it happens that TurboSmooth won't properly work. So why in here my TurboSmooth is not working? Because if you check top and bottom polygons are polygons that look, if I count, but look, this, just to understand, but this is one polygon. You can see it has no subdivisions inside. And this polygon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Sorry, I've missed one number. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 polygons. So because this number is higher than 8, this is why I have that kind of crooked, weird results. So, guess what? This is another case of when we need to know that we can use cut. Because look, I will, before using TurboSmooth, I will fix my 3D object by applying Edit Poly. By right-clicking, I use Cut, and I simply start by left-click, right-click, left, right, left, right. But from vertex to vertex, I start by fixing my polygon, and I also give a uniform subdivision And because my inner and outer polygons have 4 edges, I also give all my polygon 4 edges. So I use cut. And now look at this result. At the very beginning, it looks exactly the same as before, but now my top and bottom polygon, they have just smaller polygons, and each one has 4 edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. So see how different it will be now using TurboSmooth. I apply same TurboSmooth. I set iterations to 3, and now it works. And it works also exactly as I was expecting. So from that sharp looking donut, now I have a rounded, beautifully smoothed donut. Okay? Is that clear? Yes? No? Maybe? Let me see. Let me see the chat. Great. I know. Perfect. Nice and smooth. I will say nice and turbo smooth. So, uh, one simple thing, because in general, students at the very first time that they see these kind of things, they say that, and they think that, I mean, this is one tool, or sometimes they have to use another tool. Just to clarify, remember, all things that we are studying from the beginning must be considered as a unique big toolbox, and you must use all of these tools. What it means, for example, uh, some students used to ask me when I make this example, like, what if we want to make this kind of donut round all over, but what if bottom part must be perfectly flat, not a little bit rounded, but what if it has to be just cut flat? And no one realized that what we are creating is a solid. So as any other solid, even an object with TurboSmooth applied can be used, for example, inside a ProBoolean compound object. So instead of making your life extremely complex and just adding a lot of tiny additional edges here and there, for example, if you want the top to remain smoothed, but you want to make a flat cut underneath, you can just make a box, select your donut, and use compound object, ProBoolean, subtraction. Then I start picking, and I pick this. And because the box was flat, what happens is that lower part that I'm cutting is perfectly flat and straight, while the top has remained as it was. So all things that we explain, that we have seen, line, extrude, loft, edit poly, turbo smooth, and whatsoever, they must be used all together in order to obtain whatever shape you have in mind. Okay? They are not like closed boxes and you have to open just one or just the other or the other. You have to combine them all. Okay? If this is clear, I will finish today by showing you your next homework. So, if you have no additional questions, I will show you your unbelievable, I will say, next homework. That is a little bit tricky, but not impossible. And what is interesting is that it is something that technically combines all these techniques that we have seen today and in previous weeks. And it is the homework number 7. Homework number 7 will be, boom, this magnificent headphone that you have to try to model in 3ds Max. I have placed several pictures of these and they have just color variations simply because according to the color and according to the picture there are details that in some pictures are a lot more visible, but because we haven't talked about materials, I mean the color is totally not important. But you can notice that in this headphone there are certain elements that have sharp looking edges. There are certain elements like the ear cuff that are beautifully smoothed. There are certain elements like these that instead are round in a certain part, but they are perfectly sharp on the other. So the only hint that I want to give you is this is something that looks a lot more simple that you may imagine if you simply follow this subdivision. That is, you can first of all make, where is the homework? Here. I was saying, you can first of all make half of this because it is an object that is perfectly symmetrical. Second of all, you can notice that according to those properties that I've explained, you can imagine that this is the combination of 3 pieces. This one, this one, and then this part in here. And you can really model them like 3 different objects. Object number 1, object number 2, object number 3. Once that you have made these 3 independent pieces, you can group them all together. You will make mirror and you will get final shape of your 3D object. Okay? I don't want to give you any additional hints because technically this is very simple. I mean, you can notice that this part is a little bit on the edgy side. So maybe you can use something that is called cut. In this part, we can use something that is called TURBOSMOOTH. This is very easy, can be just something with extrude, and so on and so on. Okay? Is that clear? Let me see. Because if everything is clear, I will finish this. Sorry, Marco, you... Wait. Let me read. Marco, you will create the links to upload next week. No, the folder where you can upload this homework, in order to avoid confusion, can be same exact folder that we have used for last homework. What it means. And I will put it again. So, look. Wednesday, this folder here. Let's say this folder, to be fair, was called homework 5. Is it true? So inside this folder, look, I will make the new one. So, or no, not even. You know what you have to do to make it easier? Just select this folder. And why homework 5? Anyway, yes, select this folder that I will rename and just put all of your homeworks in here. But can you see how this is called, like homework 5 and homework 5 and so homework 5? Just keep using this folder, upload your stuff just by adding the number. So homework 6, homework 7, and so on and so on. But just use same exact folder that I will share again into the chat, and you will also find it when I will finish this live stream. I'm saying this, use this, look, see this in real time. Rename. So this will be called homeworks in general. And now you have to just use this folder. Look. Wait a second. Everyone can modify. Yes. Copy. Yes, for every single class. Just use same folder, simply rename your homeworks. Homework 5, homework 6, homework 7, put them all into the same folder so that I will share only one link for each class, and it will be easier. Okay? Also try if it works. See? Just click the link, check if you can upload your stuff. Let me know if it works. Perfect. Okay? So just rename them. Only for the midterm, I will create a specific folder. Okay? Only for the midterm. But all of your homeworks will be uploaded in this one. And again, when I will finish the live stream and I will add the title to this video into the video description, you will also find again the link. So if you were not following live, I mean, you have a fixed link. And I suggest just to bookmark that link so that we won't use any additional folder. Okay? So for today, this is enough. Thanks to all of you for following me. And like I say, uh, as usual, have fun during this week, but not too much. And we will see each other next week to make the midterm. Okay? Bye, everyone. It has been a pleasure. Perfect. So let me stop the stream. See you next time.